Welcome back to another episode of the Doc Review Show. This week we're looking at the 2017 documentary called Heal. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Doc Review Show. I'm your host Alan Barry, and joining me as always is Indiana's #1 educator, Justin, aka John Keaton Seymour. Hey, what's going on, man?
Okay, all right. I don't know that one either.
John Keaton?
It's impressive how many references you can make that I don't know. Like, I feel like when I'm talking to you, I feel like one of my students when I'm talking. I make so many references that they don't understand.
Dude, this is like a huge... I thought this was like an easy layup.
It's who?
John Keaton. Yeah, that's the name. That's the character's name.
I don't know who that is. All right, who is it?
All right, Robin Williams.
A Robin Williams character?
Yeah. Are you Googling this?
No, I'm not Googling it. All right, fill me in. Who's the Robin Williams character?
Dead Poet Society.
Oh, well, see, okay, that's good. No, that's good. I've only seen like a few scenes from Dead Poet Society. I've never watched the whole movie. And actually, I think the reason is because I'm an actual teacher, and I know that if I watch that, I'm just going to call bullshit the whole time. So I know he's this very inspiring teacher and all that stuff. In fact, when I wrote my book about teaching, I mentioned a piece about how our first years as teachers, we are definitely not Dead Poet Society / Freedom Writers style teachers. And if we watch those movies and we go into teaching thinking that's how we're going to be, you're going to be in for a rude awakening.
So you take issue with the movie?
Oh, I'm sure it's good. Like, actually, I'm sure I should probably watch it now that I've been doing it a few years, and I could watch it and be like, oh, okay, that's good. But it's like being an astronaut that watches the movie Armageddon. You're just going to be like...
So now I'm slowly realizing I'm the fucking idiot because I like the movie and I probably, when I watched it, probably thought,
good.
Wow.
That doesn't mean the movie's not good. I'm sure it's a great movie.
I get that, but I'm just saying there's probably parts of it that I got sucked into and believed that, oh, that's how it is, when in reality. So yeah, I completely feel your point.
Could be. I don't know. I'll try to watch it if I get a chance over break and tell you what I think.
So what's the movie this week? It's
all right. So this week we are reviewing the documentary called Heal, and this documentary is a documentary that focuses on medical practices outside of traditional Western medicine that most of us are familiar with, focusing primarily on what they call mind-body medicine and the healing powers of our own consciousness and how it interacts with our body. So primarily this documentary focuses on mind and body medicine. In essence, mind over matter. This movie is I think on the outset of it, a lot of us would immediately say bullshit. What's going on here is bullshit. Yeah. So watching this, I felt like there was this like internal war inside me. I'm just like, because there's like a lot of it that I actually agree with. There's a huge amount that our brains really do have an effect on the way we can heal our bodies. There's no question about that, because if there wasn't, the placebo effect wouldn't even exist, right? And we're all very familiar with how we think about the world and or ourselves and how we imagine ourselves really does translate into what we become. Unfortunately, you've had like a lot of people run with that kind of thing. Like, do you remember The Secret a few years ago?
Yeah, I thought the same thing. Go ahead. Yeah,
like like that kind of stuff, right? And I watched that, The Secret, like when it came out, and I'm like, there's nothing mystical about that. If you think about something a lot, you're probably going to put yourself in a position to get that thing. You know what I mean? Like, that's just the nature of being a human being. That's what we do. And there's nothing really mystical about that. But they could package it in a way that makes people feel like it's special. And I feel like in some sense, that's kind of what this documentary did. It took a lot of things that are actually kind of obvious and then packages it in a way that makes people feel like there's something overly special to it. Not that it's not important. I'll say that.
It's kind of like how a conspiracy will have a small grain of truth, and then the rest of it kind of extrapolates from there, just a bunch of sewage, of falsities, right?
Yeah, right. So
this movie, it basically focuses in on the host, Kelly Noonan. So Kelly Noonan is the director, and she's also the writer. They follow her kind of across the United States, and they have a couple different stories that demonstrates different ways your mind can affect your health. I don't know if it's her ego or if it's the people that directed her, but they really like her being kind of in front of the camera. To me, that kind of turned me off. Like when she's outdoors eating grass and it's supposed to be like whimsical and funny.
That scene was weird. I was like, why is she eating like wheat or something out of a field or something? I don't know.
And then they pushed her like across the screen in front of a hotel lobby in a luggage cart. And it's like, okay, you're not really that much of a character that I won't really care to see see any of this stuff, but I believe you think that this is good. I think the people that made it thought that was good. But the interesting thing about her, for me, because I guess because I'm shallow, is that she's married to a billionaire. So she's married to Alec Gores, which is he's worth a couple $1 billion. He made his fortunes in like leverage buyouts of tech firms. But so I'm speculating. I don't know this to be true, but I'm guessing that Big Papa paid for this film to be made, and that's why it's so eccentric on Kelly Noonan. She's a fine host, didn't you think? I mean, she does an okay job as a host.
Yeah, I thought she was a fine host too. Yeah, I really didn't have any criticisms of her as a host hosting the movie by any means.
She seems like a pleasant person, but I just think it's important to know where the money comes from, so she can, I guess, set up anything she wants. She doesn't have to ask it, hey, is it cool to do this?
But that's, again, just speculation. We don't know for sure that that's the case, but probably, right?
She's been in other things, so she's been around in other films and all that, so I could be completely wrong. I don't know who financed the film. It just seems like it's almost like it's a big info commercial. It's shot really well. It's edited really well. I mean, the production value on it is extremely high. I don't know. Maybe there's not a connection and I'm trying to make one up.
No, I agree. I thought the production value was good. Like, it wasn't like hard to watch in any way. In fact, I found myself kind of pulled into it. I actually kind of enjoyed watching it in essence, because I'm like, yes, there's some things that are so true to this, but then there's some things that I'm like, man, I think there's some things that are misleading as well. The thing they argue about most, I think it's like basically the first half of the film, is pointing out mostly that stress in your life and whatever factor can raise cortisol levels in your blood, and then that leads to a lot of diseases. And some people, I think everyone agrees that stress is a disease factor. Even the most conventional Western doctors, I think, agree with that. And it can impair your immune system. And there was the PhD they had named Kelly Turner in the film, and she allegedly did this study across all these different people that had diseases, and or particularly they had cancer, and they all experienced some type of radical remission. Basically, they had some kind of miracle remission from cancer. And she looked at the factors that they all did, everything that they did. And she said there was a lot of them, but there were only 9 factors that was common amongst all of them. And I don't have the whole list, but what's interesting, what she pointed out in the film, is that only 2 of those factors were physical. And those were, one of them was changing your diet, and the other one was using supplements. She said the other 7 of those 9 were mental shifts towards positive type thinking, and particularly releasing suppressed and stressful emotions that you've got in your body.
When you hold on to stress, when you hold on past vengeance or past thoughts of vengeance on other people, it does nothing but harm you. And that harm is in the way of your body starting to malfunction, because what you do sets off a daisy chain of negative stuff for your body that can cause illness, but most of all speeds up your life, at least, or shortens your life expectancy. So
there's no question that changing things in your mental state will have an effect on the way your body is. Like, there's just no question about that. And I think that's the nugget of truth that this documentary hits. And I think a lot of people do forget about that and don't implement anything like that in their lives. They don't switch to being more positive about things. They don't try to release suppressed emotions, like negative thoughts that they have in their minds. It really is kind of toxic to you. But what's interesting about that, though, is of those 9 factors, they talked about all these people radically changed their diet. To be honest, that could be 80% of everything. Just changing what you're putting in your body could be 80% of what's helping you become better. And your mental shift, your positive shift, could only be 20% or less. Who knows what that, we don't really know what to attribute to what in this case. But there are some misleading things health-wise, I thought. So, for example, at 28 minutes into the documentary, there's a guy who's there. He's a doctor, I think, and his claim is that he says 100% of type 2 diabetes has nothing to do with genetics at all, and that it's all 100% environmental factors. That's primary cause. And the problem is that if we're using like political fact checker here, that is mostly true, but it's not 100% true. Your genetics can have a role in how your body expresses and gets diabetes. So there's a good example of, in World War II, a town is being surrounded by the Nazi army, and they basically all start starving. If you are a pregnant woman in, like, say, your 2nd or 3rd trimester during that siege of the city, that infant baby, even in the prenatal care, even when it's in the womb, its body is trying to decide what kind of environment is it like out there. Am I going to get enough nutrients or am I not? Well, all things being equal, 40 years later, when that baby is born and grows up and gets older, that person's body is going to be much more stingy with its sugar, and it's going to hold on to that because its body thinks that it's a rarity to have. And that is that's an epigenetic effect that happens. Now that is, you can say, well, the doctor would say, well, that's environment. Well, yeah, you're right. But your genes do a role in this to some degree. So he's mostly right. It's just, there's some things that I think are misleading like that. And then there was another factor that really made me question the legitimacy of the documentary is when they brought in Deepak Chopra. I've studied Buddhism for about 4 years. I don't consider myself really a Buddhist per se. I'm pretty secular, but I've studied it, and I've done meditation for a long time, and I understand why someone like Deepak Chopra says what he says and why people believe everything he says. A lot of the stuff he says is mostly true. Again, he's one of these people that's a lot of what he says is mostly true, but I also don't think when you're talking about healing the body, you should be talking about quantum physics. Those two things I just don't think go together.
They try to do that a couple times where they would talk some scientific language and then mix it in with spiritual language, and then almost like making the spiritual language legitimate because they talk about some scientific terms as well.
A lot of this, it really sounds, the word is woo-woo, bullshit. That was, for me, one of the major problems of this documentary. However, it doesn't mean that most of it's not true, and that they're not pointing out to good things like how we should be engaged probably in meditation. Have you done any meditation work or anything?
First of all, is woo-woo, is that what the kids are saying?
Well, that's what people call like this, like woo-woo, like, stuff that's like, spirituality and all this sciencey stuff all mixed together that doesn't really have a clear, cohesive answer.
Okay, so people are actually saying woo-woo. Yeah. You're not just creating that.
No, that's something people say.
Sorry, man. Okay, so I meditate. I usually meditate twice a day. I've been doing this for probably, 5 years or something like that. And I definitely find the benefits to it. There's no doubt about it. But anytime I see somebody trying to sell the idea of meditation, it's kind of silly because you don't really have to sell this at all to understand how to meditate. My biggest issue with this film is just the profiteering off of other people's illnesses. And I think that a lot of these people in this film are charlatans, and they are modern day snake oil salespeople. And I hate it because it really, some of the things that they're talking about that are true, it makes those things so much seem less true, even though that they are.
Well, okay, let's do this. Why don't we do like what we think is true and what we think is bullshit? Like, so for example, they say that they're convinced in this film that our thoughts and our emotions have a power to heal the body. And I think that is mostly true. However, I'm not going to leave my positive thoughts to cure my cancer. I'm just not going to do that.
I don't think it's actually thoughts, though. I think maybe your thoughts create other reactions within your body. So I guess it's an instigator of it, or it's a spark for it, but that's not really heals your body. And it's only if it's something physically that's possible. So if your leg gets cut off, your body can't regenerate that leg no matter how much you wish it to be. So for me, it's like, okay, where's that line then? I think there's something about a positive attitude no matter which situation you're in, the ability to be grateful and be present in the moment, that has an effect on you physically, but I'm not exactly sure how much or how that even is enacted, or does it just go back to that placebo effect? It is working for me because I believe it to work for me.
I think it's actually more of let's go back to meditation. So say you're doing meditation. I think it is what's the word? A preventative step of disease. So because you're continually, let's say you meditate twice a day, like you're doing. How long do you do meditation for?
Typically it's 20 minutes.
Okay, that's good. Can you sit pretty consistently and be pretty clear for that 20 minutes, or is it like maybe getting 1 or 2 minutes out of it?
The thing about meditation, the concept of it's easy, but to actually meditate perfectly is a lifelong journey. Enlightenment really is about after you're able to basically be in a meditative state no matter what. Me being almost 50, I know that I probably will never obtain that in my lifetime because it's just a very difficult thing. So to answer your question, sometimes I'll go to a couple minutes of being there, and then a lot of the times it's every 5 seconds I got to bring myself back.
So something like meditation, I think it does two things. One is it is kind of like brain training. You're training your ability to focus your attention, and that's good in every situation in your life. You're also focusing your ability to put attention on your own inner landscape, like your own thoughts, and like you said once you realize that you have strayed away from, like, say, are you doing counting breaths? Is that what you're doing, or you're just focusing on breath?
Focusing on breath, yeah.
We realize quicker that you've gotten away from your breath, you can pull yourself back in. That's a good skill to have. Secondly, I think it actually also leads to the reduction in cortisol levels once you hit that state of actual clarity and relaxation, right? That's the reduction of cortisol in your body. And that, if you do that twice a day, every day, then you're right there, I think, more preventative of disease than anything that is stress related, I should say, disease that is stress related.
My thought on it, and I don't know scientifically if I'm correct or whatever, but it keeps you out of what's called your reptilian mind. And I know some people that are listening to saying, what the fuck, reptilian mind? That just sounds so stupid. And I agree it does, but that's what it's called. It's a scientific term. Your reptilian mind is basically where your fight or flight come into play. So I'm either going to fight this dude or I'm gonna run. So when that happens, that's when the cortisol kicks in, which is a bad thing for your body. Via meditating, for me, I'm able to stay more in my frontal cortex, because the reptilian mind's more towards the back. And if you're able to do that, then you don't go fight or flight. You more think about the situation and come up with something in the middle, a moderate decision that does you fine.
And then the other good point they made in the film is that a lot of the problem that stress causes is inflammation in places in your body. So in every Western doctor would pretty much agree the reduction of inflammation in your body is a good thing.
So we're going back in that circle of it's your diet and your mental health. I think those are the two. Again, like we said, I don't know what ratio it is, but those are two of the most important things to good health, I would think.
All that stuff, I think, is more effective as preventative medicine than it is post-disease. You know what I mean? Still probably useful, I'm sure.
So I got a point for that point. I think a lot of times you are right. It is preventative, because this type of mental health isn't really for trauma. It's for more maintaining a certain lifestyle, a certain way of being. But there's this doctor named Dr. Sarnos. He wrote a book called The Healing Back, and this was, I don't know, I read it 15 years ago or something like that. So it was actually recommended to me by Howard Stern. No, well, not personally, but on the radio, Howard Stern would talk about how he always had these lower back issues, just constantly pain, and couldn't figure it out. Went to many different doctors. Nobody could ever figure out this situation. Somehow it was recommended to him, and he may have went, no, that's right. Somebody recommended to him, Dr. Sarnos. He went to him. The rest of this I kind of get from the book myself. But his theory is that your body will create pain to basically protect your ego from something that you need to be dealing with. So let's say that you're going to be late on some payments, or you're already past due, or you're cheating on your spouse, and you don't want to think about those things. Your subconscious and conscious work together to try to say, all right, let's give him something to think about, a la pain, and then that way he doesn't have to think about this other item. Now, this is his theory. If that's true, then what you do is you ignore that pain and start to act like it's fine. And of course, you have to make sure that you pass some medical screenings, that there's nothing actually there that's wrong. But and it worked. It worked for me. It worked for Howard Stern. And I know it's worked for other people too. So you go back 15 years, I was having a lot of difficulties in life and had a constant back issue. And I followed the advice in this book, and I really have never had any back pain since, with the exception of something that was due to some type of physical exertion. So again, is it psychosomatic? I don't know, but it did work.
So you just kind of so you were having back pain, but you just ignored the pain?
When we have back pain, what do? We baby it. So then we're reinforcing to our subconsciousness that this is what we want. A lot of good people out there that's going to disagree with me on this point, but I think chiropractors are a load of shit, and I would love to do a documentary on that. But so what do we do when we have back pain? We go to a chiropractor, right? And they do some mending around, and all of a sudden you feel better. So I did it too. I went to chiropractor, and I felt better for a couple of days. And then all of a sudden, my pain came back again. So it was always a temporary relief, until I followed this book, and I've never had it since.
That's interesting. I've never heard of that, but it's kind of a similar approach to medicine, isn't it? As in this documentary.
The reason people don't believe in it, because they think that their pain is real, because it feels real. There's no doubt about that pain actually feels like pain. And it's just a tough sell to someone saying, well, that's in your head. And I get that, because most people will be like, what do you mean it's in my head?
Like, I can feel it right there in my back. I must have something going on with it, right?
In this country, we have a big issue with discussing mental health in an open, compassionate capacity, and really looking at, there are some things out there that we still haven't pressed forward on to figure out that could help us. And I think, bringing it back to the doc, I think in this documentary, they do bring up a couple things. But the one dude named the NeuroAcoustic Wizard is a fucking fraud.
The NeuroAcoustic Wizard, right? Probably. I don't know, man. Like, that's the thing, though. Even if, let's say this guy does his...
You're buying into that.
No. I mean, it's like the placebo effect. Again, it's like, let's say this guy does his thing, right? Like his neuroacoustic therapy or whatever. Let's say physically it doesn't do shit. Let's say it doesn't physically do anything. But what it does is it allows you to get in a mental state that, this must be doing something, that then allows your body to heal itself.
Again, my biggest issue is the profiteering from this. The NeuroAcoustic Wizard is making money off this, and if it's just a subliminal thing or
right, I know what you mean. Like if they're basically just tricking and conditioning your mind into thinking a different way so that your body can heal itself.
Right. You can figure that out on how to do that for free, or these people could, I don't know.
But isn't that kind of a necessary thing? You were just talking about enlightenment, right? So like in Zen, for example, Zen masters, they give their students these impossible things to go through, these impossible problems to solve. They only make them go through it so that they can clearly see enlightenment is right in front of them all the time.
And what do they charge them?
I think it's just enough to stay at the place. It's not much, though. It's very cheap.
All I'm saying is I'm not really disagreeing with anything other than I just don't think that the money part of it is the part that I hate about these people.
The thing, though, but handing over that money might make you think, this is really legitimate. You know what I mean? This is a legitimacy thing. And it's like, it creates a sense of this is real in your mind. And I don't agree, but I agree with you. Again, I'm not arguing against you. I'm just saying, like, you're probably right. Like the ethics of profiteering off of something that probably doesn't actually do anything, but you have to create, if it does seem to have some result, not so much physically, but it actually causes these people to heal themselves in some way. It's like when I trick my students into being interested in something they really shouldn't be interested in. You know what I mean?
When you're dealing with somebody that has some serious disease like cancer, you shouldn't be trying to buffoon them into it. You could try to say, hey, I think that maybe some meditation, some things that we actually have scientific backing on, because meditation does have some scientific papers on. I think let's try these things. These things are free. I don't know, man. I don't agree with.
No, I'm 100% with you. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I would never go to the NeuroAcoustic Wizard.
Okay.
It's not like that. Or, I've never been to a chiropractor either. I know there's a big difference between the neuroacoustic guy and the chiropractors. I believe in Western medicine. I think there's a reason that, people are living, 100 years ago, you can only live to 44 years old. That was the average life expectancy of an adult male in the United States. And now we're almost 80. And that's because of Western medicine.
I like both sides because I think that Western medicine is great. And I definitely get my shots. But there's things that are brought up in here that I think a lot of people in the United States would say, oh, that's just hippie shit, or whatever. And I get that, but it's not hippie shit. It's actual stuff that could affect your life. And I would be happy to tell you how to do it for free. I'm not, you know what I mean? I want that vibe to happen. But a movie like this kind of sets that back because they allow guys to stand there with their arms waving around you because he thinks his spirit has talked to him. And that's just like, dude,
bullshit I've ever seen in my life.
Right. So the documentarians that made this, to me, Kelly Noonan is guilty for that. She's spreading some bullshit, even though some of her parts of her movie have good points that are legit. And I just think that I hate that. So it's almost like, okay, Kelly, you're just either trying to get you a TV series or you're just so in love with yourself that you think you need to be in a documentary. Because if it was really about the desire to enlighten people to real things, she would have left that bullshit out of it.
I actually put that as the thing that I was like, this is the most You know, I put it in my notes like, man, I can't believe we hadn't hit on that yet, actually. This guy who is like waving his arms around him and pulling this energy out of him. And this guy like cries because he says, he's like, oh my God, that's the best thing. My life has changed, you know.
In my dad's generation, if you went to see a psych, you know, you were a fruitcake or something. You know what I mean? I don't know what they would call it, but you were not a man in their standards. And I didn't mean that disparaging to anyone. I'm just saying that that's how they kind of felt if you went to see somebody about your brain. And I don't think that therapy has to be a lifelong thing. Some therapy just so you can understand how to work your mind, I don't see how that harms anything. But there is a large sector of people that feel that it's something like negative about them, or that's just crazy people. I don't know. I wish it would be treated the same as a broken arm.
Right. I agree. But coming down to one of my fundamental problems with this documentary is that the film mentions multiple occasions where it keeps talking about this, what I'm going to put in quotations, intelligence that gives life to everything. And this intelligence is smarter than we are. I mean, that's just another way of saying God or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Or hey, do you have a fire alarm that keeps beeping?
It's in the hallway of my apartment complex. I can't control it.
Oh my gosh, that's horrible.
Right.
You got to hear that?
I've got to hear it, yeah. You start to block it out. It's like living next to train tracks, you kind of...
Well, maybe you should think about it and connect with the spirit of the outside.
The intelligence that gives life to everything, and see if it will shut up that alarm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Sorry, I heard it a few times. I was like, is that what I'm hearing? Anyways, yeah, they do mention some type of intelligent life force. That could be God, but hey.
I mean, there's no question that our bodies do have intelligence. Like, I'm not denying that. Like, our bodies and nature does have an inherent intelligence to itself. Like,
it's evolved to where we are now. Right.
Like, your heart somehow magically beats itself all day, keeping your body alive. Your fingernails grow. I mean, your hair continues to grow. Like, you keep breathing when you're not even thinking about it. I mean, that's what I'm saying is, like, there is an inherent intelligence in your body that, like, you don't have to think about and be conscious of. Like, it's there. And that's pretty obvious, but I don't like talking about it the way they talk about it is like almost this magical thing.
They're core demographic people. They're trying to give them a way around their religion. If you're a religious person, then this documentary could make a conflict for you because it's not exactly how the Bible would say it to be, right? So by saying this intelligent being is part of it, well, if you're a religious person, you're on they're talking about God. I just think it helps sell the books, and that's I really think this is an info commercial. If you go to the website and look at the people that were on there talking, they all link to their websites, and their websites, they sell their product. Maybe these guys pay to be here. Maybe this is really just a big commercial and we just don't know it. Why else would they let the NeuroAcoustic Wizard on there? It's either shitty research, being a shitty documentarian, or they're selling the spot. I don't know. I think I've talked too long about a movie I'll never see again. I'm going to say I am going to give it a 6 on the IMDb score, but mostly because I felt that on the production side they did a really good job. The camera movements, the lighting, for the most part, the flow, the pace. Every interview was shot highly skilled. The lighting. I can't say enough about the production side of it. The subject matter. I just think that probably 3/4 of the movies to me is hog shit, and 1/4 of it makes sense. So I'm going to give it a 6 out of 5 or 6 out of 10. Sorry.
6 out of 5. That's pretty good.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't using my mind.
We have been on similar minds lately, so I think I've actually given it a 6 also for both the same reasons. Actually, for the production value was good. I think about what was in it that I agree with. Maybe you said 1/4 of it, but I think maybe 60% of it is truly there and valuable. But there's another whole 40%, which is a lot, that is semi-misleading. Like you said, it's sort of infomercial-like, and it's not that this thing is not worth watching, because you could watch it once and be like, okay, what am I going to take something from it? Like, primarily, I can tell you right now, change your diet, probably start meditating, and you're probably good.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Except for I'm
reduce stress.
75.
Reduce stress in your life. That's it.
And I think 75% of this was bullshit. I only think 25% of it was worth anything, and I agree with you, man. Just if you just get your eating in order, maybe try to do some meditation, but just you don't have to pay for this stuff. All this information, the ways to do it, you can easily Google it. Just don't waste your money on it, because you don't have to. And if you're wasting your money on it, maybe look inside and say, are you just trying to find an easy fix as opposed to just doing it? Because it can be difficult just to get going. So it is worth a watch. It's worth a watch. Hopefully you'll pick up some of the good stuff and the stuff that, if you think it's quackery, if you think the NeuroAcoustic Wizard is full of shit, I think you can make that call yourself. All right, thanks for stopping by. If you like the show, please give us a like and subscribe. Until next time, see ya.
I'm sitting in my room. My mom and my dad came in. They pulled up a chair and they sat down. They go, Mike, we need to talk to you. I go, okay, what's the matter? They go, me and your mom, we've noticed lately you've been having a lot of problems. And you've been going off for no reason. And we're afraid you're going to hurt somebody. We're afraid you're going to hurt yourself. So we decided that it would be in your best interest if we put you somewhere where you can get the help that you need. And I go, wait, what are you talking about? We decided my best interest? How How do you know what my best interest is? How can you say what my best interest is? What are you trying to say? I'm crazy? When I went to your schools, I went to your churches, I went to your institutional learning facilities. So how can you say I'm crazy? Say to go to fix my brain, leave me suffering at my face. By the time they fix my head, better leave me, I'll be dead. I'm not crazy.